Hello. When talking about Colombian drug cartels, the names of Pablo Escobar and the Medellin Cartel are often the first to come up. However, between the years 1980 and 1990, another powerful criminal organization also held significant influence: the Cali Cartel. What set the Cali Cartel apart was their distinct approach to running their operations. Instead of resorting to violence like Escobar, they preferred to use money for bribery, quietly maneuvering things in their favor. With an annual budget of $1 billion allocated for bribing officials, the Cali Cartel had the ability to corrupt everyone from low-level operatives to the highest office, the President of Colombia. Their strategy was to avoid bloodshed when possible and instead use money to silence any opposition and prevent the media from reporting on their illicit activities. For this reason, they earned the nickname the Gentlemen of Cali. However, don't let their politeness fool you, as they were still prepared to use force when necessary to maintain power and command respect from their rivals. The four key leaders of the organization were the brothers Gilberto Rodriguez Orihuela and Miguel Rodriguez Orihuela, along with Jose Cheap Santa Cruz Londano and Helmer Pacho Herrera. Under their leadership, the Cali Cartel grew into a formidable drug empire. According to the U.S. Drug Enforcement Administration, DEA, the Cali Cartel was considered the most powerful criminal organization in history, surpassing even Escobar's empire. At the height of their operations, they controlled 90% of the cocaine entering the U.S. and 80% of the cocaine entering Europe, with annual revenues reaching $20 billion. The Cali Cartel was founded in the 1970s by three men: the Rodriguez Orihuela brothers and Jose Cheap Santa Cruz Londano. Later, Helmer Pacho Herrera joined and became the fourth powerful figure in the leadership team. Roberto Rodriguez Orihuela was born on January 30th, 1939 in northwestern Bogotá, while his younger brother Miguel was born a few years later. 4 years later, on August 15th, 1943, Roberto and Miguel's family moved to Cali, Colombia's third largest city, where the brothers spent most of their youth. Due to financial difficulties, Roberto had to drop out of school at the age of 10. 5 years later, he started working at a pharmacy, a job that eventually led him into the illegal activities that were beginning to rise in Colombia at the time. With his sharp business mind, Gilberto, at the age of 25, began running a pharmacy that specialized in selling stolen medical supplies. Soon after, Miguel joined him, marking the beginning of their long-lasting partnership in the underground world. A childhood friend of the brothers, Jose Cheap Santa Cruz Londano, also quickly became involved with them. It was Cheap who suggested to Gilberto the idea of forming a kidnap-for-ransom gang called Los Chimas, named after the popular slick-back hairstyles of the 1950s. The Los Chimas gang quickly grew in the kidnapping business, with their most successful job being a ransom demand of 12 million pesos, equivalent to nearly $1 million at that time. The turning point came when they met Benjamin Herrera Zuleta, one of the pioneers of the drug trade in Colombia. Under Zuleta's guidance, they began dealing in marijuana and later switched to cocaine, a much more profitable commodity. Soon after, the trio gained control over the entire drug trade in Cali, but their ambitions didn't stop there. With a kilogram of cocaine as their initial capital, they began their journey to expand into the U.S. market by moving through Central America to reach the Texas border. Upon reaching the Texas border, Gilberto's group inadvertently entered the territory of the powerful drug lord Pablo Acosta Villarreal, who would later become a mentor to Amado Carrillo Fuentes. Fortunately, they managed to cross the border safely without being detected, and no one dared to imagine the consequences if Villarreal had learned of their presence. Eventually, they made it to New York and were astonished by the potential of the market there. In the post-Vietnam War period, U.S. society had an increasing demand for drugs, especially cocaine. By the 1970s, the price of 1 kilogram of cocaine in New York could rise to $50,000 to $60,000, 10 times the price in Colombia. Recognizing a lucrative opportunity, the Cali Cartel swiftly expanded its cocaine production and distribution, making it their primary business. The Cali Cartel was born and began to grow into a powerful empire. They organized their operations into independent cells, which protected information about the leaders in case of government intervention. Cheap was responsible for distributing cocaine across the U.S., with New York being the primary market. The drugs were transported through various channels before reaching nightclubs, bars, and clubs in major cities. Within the organization, Gilberto took on the role of CEO, while his younger brother Miguel, known as Don Miguel, served as his trusted right hand. Miguel ran the operations and managed everything from finances to security, deliveries, and bribing the police. Pacho Herrera was the youngest member and the last to join the Cali Cartel's leadership. Before joining the organization in 1983, Pacho had already gained experience in cocaine trafficking in the U.S. He was known for being discreet and cautious, never appearing in the media, according to the DEA. In addition to overseeing the New York market, Pacho also managed one of the most sophisticated and effective money laundering systems, which played a crucial role in the cartel's exponential growth. Pacho Herrera was instrumental in generating immense profits for the Cali Cartel by establishing a new smuggling route through Mexico, leveraging his extensive network of contacts. As the head of security for the organization, Pacho earned a reputation as the most reliable figure. Though the most secretive of the leaders, Pacho was also the most violent when dealing with enemies. By the 1980s, Cali, a city with a population of over 1 million, was divided into distinct territories. The Rodriguez-Orihuela brothers controlled the central area and the southern suburbs, while Cheap controlled the entire southern part of the city. Meanwhile, Pacho Herrera dominated the northern region. The city was almost entirely under their control, and no activity could occur without the cartel's knowledge. They also controlled the telephone company and had an extensive network of thousands of taxi drivers. Through a large-scale bribery strategy, the cartel was able to identify anyone who entered their territory. White American agents, in particular, were quickly spotted when they appeared in the city. Unlike many other drug lords, the Rodriguez-Orihuela brothers were not addicted to alcohol or drugs. Instead, they were passionate about soccer. In 1979, Miguel, a fervent soccer fan, decided to invest a large sum of money into America de Cali, one of the two largest soccer clubs in the city. Under the cartel's investment, America de Cali experienced a dramatic transformation, winning their first ever Colombian championship. In 1979, their success continued into the 1980s as America de Cali clinched 5 more national titles and reached the final of the prestigious Copa Libertadores 3 times, South America's top club tournament. These achievements brought immense joy to the fans of America de Cali. Despite owning numerous luxurious properties throughout the city, the Gentlemen of Cali remained modest and discreet. Rather than driving luxury cars, they chose more modest vehicles for themselves while lending expensive cars to politicians and celebrities. When questioned by the media, they skillfully explained their wealth as the result of legitimate business activities. Whenever a negative article appeared about them, Gilberto would personally call the journalists and reprimand them. The cartel's recruitment process was highly professional, much like a legitimate company. They only hired the most talented individuals in fields like accounting, economics, and finance. New employees were required to follow strict rules sent via fax, which emphasized living simply and avoiding attention. This discipline helped the organization thrive with minimal trouble. The Cali Cartel operated on the principle of preferring the shadows over the spotlight. They built an empire of international scope with a distribution network spanning North America, Europe, and the Far East. However, they were not the only cartel in the cocaine market. On the other side of the mountains, the Medellín Cartel, led by Pablo Escobar, was a formidable rival. The organizational structures of the Cali and Medellín cartels were starkly different. The Cali Cartel was run by a board of directors composed of 4 kingpins, where all major decisions were discussed and voted on, preventing major conflicts. In contrast, the Medellín Cartel operated as a loose alliance of independent drug lords, with Pablo Escobar frequently imposing his personal will on the other members. The Gentlemen of Cali saw themselves as more sophisticated than the thugs of Medellín. While they focused on building relationships with Colombia's elite, Pablo Escobar prioritized winning the support and affection of the people of Medellín. This difference was also reflected in how they dealt with threats. Cali preferred bribery, while Escobar favored violence. According to the DEA's office head in New York at the time, the Cali Cartel only resorted to killing when there were no other options. They preferred using lawyers over guns. Contrary to what many believe, the Cali and Medellín cartels were not always enemies. In fact, they had a fairly amicable relationship in the beginning and even allied to fight a common enemy. The change came in the early 1980s when the M19 guerrilla group targeted Colombian drug lords for extortion. Initially, Pablo Escobar intervened and tried to negotiate with M19, urging them to abandon their kidnapping plans. However, after a period of inactivity, M19 broke the agreement and kidnapped a key member of the Medellín Cartel. Not stopping there, they also kidnapped the sister of the Ochoa brothers, one of the Medellín Cartel's founders, demanding a $12 million ransom. When Pablo Escobar and the Ochoa brothers refused to pay the ransom, an emergency meeting was called, attended by hundreds of drug lords from across the country, including the Cali Cartel. This led to the creation of Muerte a Secuestradores, death to kidnappers, a private army funded not only by Colombia's drug cartels, but also supported by U.S. companies, Colombian politicians, and wealthy landowners. Together, they formed an alliance to protect their economic interests and fight back against the kidnappings by M19. The consequences for M19 were catastrophic, as many of their members were captured, tortured, and massacred. The drug cartels proved highly effective at dealing with the guerrillas, even surpassing the Colombian government in their efficiency. Eventually, M19 was forced to apologize to Pablo Escobar and the Ochoa brothers before releasing their hostages. This event forged a strong bond between the Colombian drug cartels, particularly the Cali and Medellín cartels. They began to collaborate in trafficking cocaine to the U.S., where the demand was so great that the cartels could coexist without direct conflict. In the early 1980s, while the U.S. government focused on combating heroin and marijuana, the CIA had a different priority: preventing the spread of communism in Central and South America. Fearing that cocaine production could fall into the hands of communist groups, the CIA offered to cooperate with the drug lords. In exchange, the cartels would receive protection and American weapon supplies to fight off communist militias. In this context, both the Cali and Medellín cartels worked with the CIA, and the likelihood of conflict between the two groups was minimal during this period of peace. Gilberto Rodriguez and Jose Luis Ochoa, one of the Ochoa brothers of the Medellín Cartel, developed a close relationship. They co-owned a bank in Panama to launder money for the cartels and frequently cooperated on drug deals in Europe. Things continued smoothly until Pablo Escobar decided to pursue a political career, a decision that would become the biggest mistake of his life. Escobar's idea of controlling the country through politics was not without merit, but he underestimated the complexity of this task, especially the influence of the Minister of Justice Rodrigo Lara Bonilla, who would later become his fierce political adversary. In 1982, during his first session in the Colombian Congress, Lara Bonilla publicly accused Escobar of criminal activities and threatened to extradite him to the U.S., the greatest fear of drug lords. A few months later, Luis Carlos Galán, the leader of the Liberal Party, expelled Escobar from the party, shattering his political ambitions. In January 1984, Escobar withdrew from politics. 3 months later, in an act of revenge, he ordered the assassination of Lara Bonilla. The event drew significant attention from Washington and the international media, making Escobar the main target of the Colombian government. The most serious consequence was the ratification of the extradition treaty, which allowed the prosecution and detention of anyone involved in drug trafficking in the U.S. This was a pivotal turning point in the war against the Colombian drug cartels. The impact of this treaty was not only felt by the Medellín Cartel, but also by the Cali Cartel. The Cali Cartel was deeply upset by Escobar's reckless actions. The situation grew more tense as Escobar continued his campaign of revenge, this time targeting Luis Carlos Galán, who had strongly supported extradition and was the most popular presidential candidate in Colombia's upcoming election. On August 18, 1989, Pablo Escobar ordered the assassination of Luis Carlos Galán during a public meeting. But he didn't stop there. By the end of the year, Escobar targeted Cesar Gaviria, Galán's successor, with a bombing that killed 107 people. Fortunately for Gaviria, he missed the fateful flight. However, the death of two U.S. citizens aboard the plane led to direct U.S. government intervention in the war on drugs. As international media focused on Escobar and the Colombian drug cartels, the Cali Cartel sought to maintain its distance. They refused Escobar's requests for economic and military aid in the fight against the Colombian government, despite many other cartels agreeing to cooperate out of fear. But the Cali kingpins held the view that any conflict with the government should be handled legally. They preferred to operate in the shadows, staying out of the media spotlight and avoiding the attention of authorities. The Cali Cartel also had a different approach to finances than Escobar. Instead of hiding their money and letting it rot from water and rats, they quickly invested in business ventures, particularly in real estate. This led to a real estate boom in Cali and garnered local support from the community. The Cali bosses understood that their empire could not survive long-term without transitioning to legal operations. They planned to legitimize their vast fortune and gradually withdraw from the drug trade, especially as Escobar's activities were attracting unnecessary attention. However, by the end of 1986, the Cali Cartel's plans were upended when Pablo Escobar called a meeting with all the major drug lords of Colombia. Escobar proposed the creation of a super cartel under his leadership, in which he would control all shipments and take 30% of the profits from each load. This proposal was immediately met with opposition from the Cali bosses, signaling that a war was about to erupt and shake Colombia to its core. The rejection of the super cartel idea enraged Pablo Escobar, who stormed out of the meeting in fury, threatening war. The conflict quickly escalated as the two cartels began to report each other's cocaine shipments to the DEA. Escobar's anger grew when he discovered that the Cali Cartel had shifted their smuggling route from Florida to Mexico and allied with the Guadalajara cartel. At the same time, they were fiercely competing with Medellin in the New York market, which led to a bloody murder case in the city. By late 1987, a tragedy stemming from a personal dispute between two drug traffickers began to unfold. The victims' associates sought out Pablo Escobar, the notorious drug lord, to request help with revenge. When Escobar ordered the execution of the perpetrator, the man sought refuge by appealing to Pacho Herrera, a former prison mate of his in the U.S. and one of the four powerful leaders of the Cali Cartel. Pacho intervened to save his friend, but Escobar saw this as a direct challenge to his authority. Escobar declared that he would kill Pacho if he continued to interfere. Faced with rising tensions, the Cali kingpins held a meeting and decided to protect Pacho. Gilberto Rodriguez, one of the Cali leaders, attempted to mend relations with Escobar over the phone, arguing that a death in Queens wasn't worth starting a bloodbath in Colombia. However, Escobar cut him off and ominously declared, "So it's war, and I will kill every bastard among you." With no way out, the Rodriguez brothers were forced to abandon their plans to legitimize their empire and focus instead on drug trafficking in order to build financial resources for the coming battle with Escobar. On January 13th, 1988, the Cali Cartel initiated hostilities by attacking the Monaco building in Medellin, where Pablo Escobar and his family lived. This attack was seen as a signal of the bloody war between the two most powerful drug cartels in Colombia. On the morning of January 13th, 1988, a top assassin from the Cali Cartel placed a bomb under the 8-story Monaco building, where the Escobar family resided. The explosion occurred at 5:30 a.m. and was heard from a distance of 3 kilometers, shattering windows throughout the neighborhood and leaving a crater 3 meters deep. 2 security guards were killed, and Escobar's 4-year-old daughter lost her hearing permanently in one ear. Fortunately for Escobar, he was not present at the time of the explosion. After identifying the Cali Cartel as the perpetrators through the interrogation of the bomb maker, Escobar retaliated immediately by bombing the Orihuela family's chain of pharmacies, which they used for money laundering. Although it was an easy target, the victims were mostly innocent customers and passersby. The conflict quickly escalated when Cali sent 7 hitmen to hunt down Escobar. 1 week later, all 7 hitmen were returned in boxes, chopped into pieces. By the end of 1988, another explosion targeted Miguel Rodriguez, destroying 3 homes in an upscale neighborhood in Cali. Fortunately for Miguel, the bomb exploded prematurely 800 meters from his house, killing only 2 hitmen responsible for the attack. In an effort to take down Escobar, the Cali bosses recruited a specialist named Jorge Salcedo, an expert in surveillance and reconnaissance. Salcedo had previously been a local businessman and mercenary. The interview with Salcedo took place at one of Pacho Herrera's houses with all 4 of the Cali bosses present. They openly discussed their need for personal protection against the threat posed by Pablo Escobar, whom they described as a thief, a criminal, and a madman who didn't hesitate to attack women and children. When they learned that Salcedo was a former classmate of the late Justice Minister Rodrigo Lara, who had been assassinated by Escobar, The Cali bosses realized they had found an ally, united by a shared hatred and the pain of losing a friend. Salcedo's thirst for revenge drove him to agree to cooperate with the Cali Cartel. Gilberto Rodriguez, one of the Cali leaders, wanted Salcedo to lead a team of mercenaries, including his own brother, to carry out the mission. The mercenaries had initially been brought to Colombia under the guise of fighting communism, but in reality, they had been involved in territorial battles over cocaine production. In February 1989, the mercenary team's leader, David Tompkins, quickly agreed to Salcedo's offer after a phone call that promised a reward of $3 million if the mission was successful. Tompkins began the operation by scouting Pablo Escobar's 3,000-hectare estate, Haciendas Napoles, from a small plane. Realizing the complexity of getting close to the target, he planned to have a helicopter land on the tennis court of the estate. The mercenaries decided to disguise themselves as police officers, as they were the only ones who had never been attacked when visiting Haciendas Napoles. Tompkins requested 2 helicopters painted to resemble the Colombian government's aircraft, while the mercenaries trained in tactics, including grenade explosions and shooting drills. The Cali Cartel focused on pinpointing Escobar's location. After months of waiting, they finally received a coded radio message in Spanish confirming that Escobar was at the pool at Haciendas Napoles. Although Gilberto had approved the attack plan, at the critical moment, they only had 1 helicopter instead of 2, as originally planned. Concerned about safety, the mercenaries refused to proceed with the mission under these conditions. Despite the lack of 1 helicopter, but Gilberto insisted on going ahead with the operation, believing it might be their only chance to take down Escobar. He made a last-minute change to the plan, allowing Pacho's team of hitmen to attack from the other side of the estate. Tompkins and his team set out in the helicopter loaded with weapons and explosives while the Cali bosses monitored the operation via radio. The journey, initially planned to take 3 hours, was quickly interrupted by heavy rain and strong winds. The mercenaries' helicopter flew into thick clouds, forcing the pilot to fly blind. Ultimately, the helicopter crashed into the mountainside, killing the pilot and injuring most of the mercenaries. Fortunately, Escobar was unaware of the crash and the assassination plot. Meanwhile, he was facing increasing pressure from the Colombian government. After the assassination of Luis Carlos Galán, a nationwide crackdown was launched with financial and military support from the U.S. This operation led to the arrest of 10,000 suspected drug traffickers and had a severe impact on the Cali Cartel. They lost over 80 planes and were forced to suspend operations for weeks. Some of the mercenaries, after recovering, left Colombia and revealed the story to the media. However, the Ruiz brothers were unfazed, even pleased as they saw it as sending a threatening message to Escobar. Nevertheless, getting to Escobar became increasingly difficult as he constantly moved to evade the authorities. He became more erratic in his war against the state. On December 6, 1989, he ordered the bombing of the DS headquarters in Bogotá, where the Colombian Secret Service, FBI, and DEA offices were located, using half a ton of explosives. The blast killed 52 people, injured 1,000, and shattered windows in a 7-kilometer radius. In a weekly security meeting, Miguel Rodriguez expressed his horror. How can one person be so insane? Not long after, Escobar turned his attention to Pacho Herrera, the man who had sparked the war between the 2 cartels. A group of hitmen was sent to attack Pacho while he was playing soccer with his men. Fortunately, he narrowly escaped death, but the gunfire claimed the lives of about 20 people. After the massacre on the soccer field, Pacho Herrera swore to get revenge. When he captured one of the attackers, he had the hitman brutally tortured at his farm. The torture lasted for half an hour until the victim died. This event revealed that the Cali bosses could be just as ruthless as Escobar when provoked. In 1991, Escobar escalated the pressure on the government by kidnapping several high-profile figures from Colombia, including the daughter of a former president and a famous television host. Despite the victims' families requesting no intervention, the government attempted a rescue operation, resulting in the tragic deaths of the hostages. The public was outraged, creating pressure on the government to negotiate with Escobar through the mediation of a priest. Escobar reached a surrender agreement on the condition that he would be exempt from extradition and allowed to serve his sentence in La Catedral, a prison he had built and controlled in an effort to end the manhunt swiftly. The Colombian government granted the world's most wanted criminal near total control over his confinement. In response to this, Pacho and Miguel called Salcedo to discuss a plan to attack La Catedral via an airstrike. Although initially shocked by the idea of targeting a government facility, but Salcedo felt compelled to carry out the mission. He was sent to El Salvador to purchase 482 Malawian Quachas bombs from an army general for $500,000. However, the plan fell apart when local authorities discovered the bombs before they could be shipped out. Fortunately for Salcedo, he escaped unharmed, but some of the participants were arrested and revealed the plot to the authorities. The news soon spread to international media, forcing the Cali bosses to abandon their plans, although they still had no intention of giving up on eliminating Escobar. After the failure of the La Catedral bombing plan, the Cali Cartel found an unexpected ally in their fight against Escobar: the Colombian government. They began collaborating with international intelligence agencies to form a special task force dedicated to capturing Escobar. Leveraging a vast network of intelligence that resembled the KGB during the Cold War, the Cali Cartel provided valuable information about the activities of the Medellin kingpin. By this time, the Cali Cartel had gained the upper hand in the war, controlling most of the drug routes to the U.S. while Escobar's empire was steadily collapsing. Internal conflicts within Escobar's ranks led to several of his trusted associates being killed after they were suspected of exploiting his time in prison for personal gain. Some of his other allies turned against him. Rumors began circulating that Escobar might be transferred to a higher security prison, combined with information about a Cali Cartel plot to bomb the prison, which prompted Escobar to escape from the very prison he had built and flee into the jungle. Seizing the opportunity, Gilberto formed the Peeps. This group was not only funded by the Cali Cartel, but also included the Castano brothers, the CIA, former allies of Escobar, and many police and military officers who had lost loved ones because of him. What followed was an unprecedented alliance in global history. The DEA, Drug Enforcement Administration, the Cali Cartel, and the Colombian government all cooperated, sharing intelligence. They even shared operational strategies for special forces across 3 continents to hunt down Pablo Escobar. By December 1992, the Medellín Cartel had endured 10 bombings, and by 1993, Bogotá and Medellin were struck by 20 more bombings. Over 300 of Escobar's men were killed, including his lawyers, accountants, and hitmen. His massive fortune was also destroyed and seized, including large quantities of cocaine and several of his properties. By 1993, Pablo Escobar's empire had been severely weakened, with many of his associates killed. He was forced to hide in Medellin, relying on only a single loyal bodyguard. On December 2nd, 1993, a brief phone call with his family helped the authorities pinpoint Escobar's location. As he attempted to flee across the roof, he was shot and killed by pursuing police officers. To mark their victory over the Medellín Cartel, the Ruelas brothers held a celebratory party in Cali. At this point, the Cali Cartel controlled 90% of Colombia's cocaine production, bringing in billions of dollars annually, and had become the largest drug trafficking organization in the world. Their crucial role in eliminating Escobar earned them goodwill from the Colombian public and government, both of whom were exhausted by the violence. Recognizing this opportunity, the Cali Cartel bosses began to consider negotiating a surrender with the Attorney General. After Escobar's death, the Cali bosses proposed an amnesty deal with the government. They were willing to abandon cocaine trafficking and accept symbolic prison sentences in exchange for keeping their assets and legitimate businesses. However, the negotiations faltered when the Attorney General grew irritated with Miguel's demeanor. As Miguel remarked after a meeting, "How could you bribe a man who drives such an old V-Wagon?" Meanwhile, with the Cold War over, Saddam Hussein defeated in Iraq, and Pablo Escobar dead, the Cali Cartel became America's top target. Washington pressured Colombia to block the amnesty deal and expedite the capture of the Cali leaders. In March 1994, the search for the Cali Cartel's leaders shifted its headquarters from Medellin to Cali with a new mission to capture the 4 Cali bosses. Faced with this situation, the Cali leaders decided to bribe the president by funding his campaign with $6 million. This strategy initially succeeded when Ernesto Samper, a liberal candidate, was elected, and the cartel bosses rejoiced, thinking they had escaped further investigations. However, the DEA refused to accept this outcome and retaliated. They released wiretap recordings revealing the cartel's discussions about the $2 million bribe for Samper's campaign. The Cali Cartel's political victory quickly escalated into an international affair. Washington threatened to cut aid to Colombia, forcing Samper to act in order to salvage his reputation and maintain his presidency. Despite the Cali boss's efforts to deny any involvement through a public letter, the situation was beyond repair. Under pressure from the DEA, President Samper was forced to commit to prosecuting those who had helped him rise to power, putting the Cali Cartel leaders in unprecedented danger. The cartel's once-strong reputation, built from their collaboration with the CIA to eliminate Pablo Escobar, quickly lost its luster. Both Washington and Bogotá were determined to dismantle the organization by launching large-scale operations, offering a reward of over $1 million for information leading to the capture of the cartel bosses. On June 9, 1995, after nearly an hour of searching, a joint force of Colombian police and the DEA captured Gilberto at a secret hideout. President Samper congratulated them on their success, an act that enraged Miguel, who saw it as a betrayal after his $6 million donation to Samper's campaign. Gilberto's arrest marked the beginning of the Cali Cartel's collapse, especially when, 1 month later, Roque Salcedo, the cartel's head of security, decided to surrender after realizing the situation was hopeless. He contacted the DEA and offered to help capture Miguel in exchange for protection under the Federal Witness Protection Program. Salcedo provided crucial information that led to Miguel's arrest. Pacho Herrera, the last to join the cartel, was also the last to be caught. Unlike the other three bosses, Pacho chose to surrender and cooperate with the DEA, revealing information about 35 members of the cartel, including his own family members, in exchange for leniency. With the capture of all four bosses, the story of the Cali Cartel, once responsible for 90% of the world's cocaine and known as the Gentlemen of Cali, came to a definitive end. This story stands as a painful reminder that no matter how much power and wealth crime brings, it inevitably leads to tragedy. Operating in the shadows of the underworld never ends well, leaving deep scars on those who survive and bloody tales for future generations. What do you think about this story? Leave your thoughts in the comments below so everyone can see. Don't forget to like and subscribe to support me. Thank you for watching. Goodbye.